Oh, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, what is up? Welcome into Husker Hangover. I'm Matt Vrzal. We actually have video this week, so I feel fancy. Cam Broham still out and about handling other business on weekend. Can't say as I blame him because it was a complete snooze fest against Louisiana Tech. One of the more boring things we've probably all been a part of since we've been on the mission here to get Nebraska football back to where we all feel that it should be. Show today, we're efforting to try to get Aaron Taylor. As we speak, he's texting me back and forth. Uh, sorry, I got to just respond to this real quick. All right, so we got to get those things off. But you know how to get at me. You can get at me in the comments. Go ahead and shoot me into your questions. I don't have a whole bunch. I'll be honest with you. It was a lackluster. It wasn't that impressive. The best thing about it, Nebraska was able to run the ball quite a bit when the play was called. It was one of those things that as I was watching that game, and ended school, Harburg started and all that stuff, and it was great that he was the guy that ended up being the starter for the game. But it it, it just seemed out of rhythm. Yeah, like he had the chance to break big plays and do things in the run game, and then it seemed like we had to try out the pass game. I totally get it. I know you have to get reads and you have to get better at it, and you have to do those things. I would have taken a little different approach. I would have probably attacked it in the manner that if we go at it and get up, right, with a consistent kind of run game. And I understand all the apprehension. I understand that you're not having the most of success early in the game, but you have to keep that grind. You have to keep going with it, and you can't just kind of back down and get away from it so quickly. Um, it was a win, and Nebraska got to 2-2, and that's what they're looking for, and that's what we have to get it to. And Michigan's up next. Rutgers came out through a haymaker right away, and Michigan was able to answer in grandiose form. Nebraska, as they got going, though, a day of 419 yards. The biggest thing to me was no turnovers, like no fumbles, no interceptions. Didn't shoot yourself in the foot. It's been a while, I think, since we've had a clean sheet. It's been a long time since they haven't turned the ball over in some manner. Harburg was 8 of 18, 5.9 yards per attempt, 13.4 per completion, and for one touchdown to Fedoni, who made a nice run at the end. I mean, that was a well-designed play, able to get him open, get the big man into the end zone, so that was good to see. Rushing yards for Nebraska, 312 on 48 attempts, 6.5 a carry. So that one is glaring to me. That one's one that if you can just pound the ball, and I know I was there. There we go. For some reason, this thing keeps muting me. I have no idea why, but I don't. I apologize. If that thing goes in and out, I'm just gonna pivot this way and watch this. So this is the shot we get today. I don't have any funny shirt on, um, but it is what it is. Yeah. Overall, it was a snooze fest. I mean, I are there times where you would have liked to see Nebraska be more dominant in it? Of course, without a doubt, you would love to have seen that, but it didn't happen. There were chances to take that over and really just mash. But I think the plays got in the way. I think the calls have to be better. I think they have to be more rhythmic. I think it just has to look more fluid. Lots of things though to talk about as we get on this. The offensive line struggled again. Not their most impressive day. Uh, Billy Kemp, great to see him involved early. He'll cut touch or had a touchdown run to forget the first score of the game. He's a weapon Nebraska has to use, and he's somebody that can be that little playmaker for you. Catches it in good situation. I thought he had a really nice day. Something even there were some nice blocks downfield by him. Um, Play wise, he was the highlight of it. Anthony Grant got going sporadically, but then holding call, untimely penalty for Nebraska get just called back. Harburg has a long run, another holding penalty. Those on the edge, I would say, if I'm watching football, college football especially, those have been a point of emphasis for the referees. Those have been something that they want to make sure that hold on the outside, and maybe even too in the past, the ref has gotten caught up in watching the play, watching what happens, watching the ball go by them as it's running down the field. Now you see them look back more, like you see them take a peek at that, and probably something that in all right rhyme and reason, that wide receiver just out there busting their ass trying to make a play and making sure that they are the block that makes the run pop, makes the run go from a short run to a long run. It's unfortunate it gets called, but they do. It happens. Nebraska had 2 of them in the game. Does the complexion of that game look different then? Yeah. Because now you get more creativity again. If we want to see play action pass, you have to establish run a lot earlier than Nebraska is able to. They haven't been able to establish that early in the game, and it just is what it is. Defensively, it's kind of a funny, not necessarily a statistic, but thing to watch. Historically, about the 3rd or 4th game, people will have, like, defenses will just kind of have an issue. Okay. And Nebraska still played a good defensive game. That they still, I have no issue with anything they are doing in the games that they play. But it just wasn't like what, that it was good, but not great. Yeah, if that makes sense. And that's how I viewed it. I thought that was that when they came out, I was like, man, there's some stuff there that could look different. It could be a better opportunity to make plays, to get things done. Injury bug bit a little bit. I know Reimers got dinged up, was in street closing the second half, so that's a little off-putting. We'll have to see what comes of that as we continue on here in the season. But for them to just go out and be steady, and maybe you didn't necessarily have your fastball, but you still had a good change and a good curve, so you were able to just maintain. The total offensive numbers, La Tech went for 338 on 63 plays. Jeez. 5.4 yards per play. So I mean, it's not horrible. Quarterback was 27 for 42, had 1 pick, 292 yards passing, 46 yards rushing. Again, that's going to be your big test for your run defense. Is going to be next week. You've survived a lot of passing tests and all those things, but next week you're going to find out how much depth plays into it. And if you get a game, where the time of possession like this one, pretty balanced. It was within 3-4 minutes. Nebraska had almost 32 minutes. Louisiana Tech had 28 minutes. But if you get to a thing where you look at it and Michigan next week has 36 minutes of possession and you don't, going to be problematic because the depth of Nebraska is a huge question. Fire up your questions. Keep them running. Just slide them into the comments. I really, truth be told, I don't have a ton to talk about. So hopefully Foreman, or I got a message out to Foreman and Taylor. We'll see what those two are up to this morning. I know Haas is out running around trying to get ready to win a little guy football game. John says, I don't care what it looks like at this point. Nebraska got to win against a team they should beat. That hasn't happened. That hasn't been the norm for a while. This is kind of the sentiment. I mean, that's where everybody's at with stuff. Let's just get back to being able, like, find some sure things in your program. Nebraska versus Northern Illinois. Should they win that? Yes. Okay. We won. Good. Nothing embarrassing happened. You didn't miss out on anything. I have too many computers going on right now for me, for my dumb brain. But that used to not be a thing for us. If you can sustain this now, you got a big test coming up. After that, you're into coin toss season. So that's the next thing for Nebraska. They just have to make sure that they handle business. I mean, I hate to simplify it, or I hate to be seem like non-interested. This next game is your measuring stick game. Where do you stack up against the elite? Because they're where you want to get to. We've had this game every year. Sometimes we get two of them in a year. But right now you're looking at it like, hey, this is now where we are at. Are we better? Are we worse? Does the storyline of us being able to hang for a couple quarters and then fall apart because of lack of depth? Is it going to be that glaring Michigan's offensive line versus Nebraska's defensive line? Or is Nebraska's offensive line going to be that glaring against Michigan's defensive line? Like, are we that far off? I think your secondary has been tested already. Like your secondary and those guys have seen things from Colorado that you've seen this type of receiver that Michigan has. I'm sure everybody's celebrating that Dion got his shit kicked in Oregon, but it ain't gonna phase him. I was telling you, he'll still be talking next week. Short-term memory, just like a relief pitcher. But you're now into this Michigan game. Can you sustain quarterback run game? Is it viable to run inside of your scheme? Is it viable to run legit option? Like you saw Nebraska run legit old school option. Or when you get against a team with better talent, better skill, and that quarterback crests the corner, is that safety going to be waiting there for him and hit him hard? Do their perimeter guys get off of blocks like they should be able to, where you can't necessarily maintain that? Like you can't handle that with your perimeter blocking. So tons and tons of questions will get answered in this game. Be ready for the answer, because it might not be what you think. It might not be where it's at. The things that we were worried about in the beginning of the season are very true, and they're very real. I think if we really look at it, the one that's stuck out to us the most is that our defensive line has been able to hold up on a minimal rotation, a very, very minimal rotation. The linebacking core is in a 3-man rotation. They rotate 3 guys through the game. The secondary has more than enough people. It was great to see. Actually, one of my highlights from the game was getting to see Javen Wright make plays. Like number 33 got in there, got his nose in it, really kind of flying around, getting in after the ball. That was awesome, because that's a kid, immensely talented, great bloodline. Dad was a stud. If he evolves and he becomes a really high level player for Nebraska, that's a huge step. That's a big one. But that's the look. Like that's where you're at. Like you've got to figure out, you've got to find out what this is. So now it's your measuring stick game. And then you come in to a thing that if you get blown out, it's an easy discussion. Well, we figured that was going to happen. We figured that was the way that was going to go. We were going to get blown out. That's, blah, 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 blah. If you keep it mid-range, right? Good teams win, great teams cover. If you take what Vegas thought the number would be, how much you were going to get beat by, and you cover that number, people don't want to talk about it out loud, but it is a real thing. Like that's a win. That's a mental win. There are no participant ribbons. But if you're looking to measure where you're at, and we've talked about this regime, this started with Riley, and then it moved on to Frost, and now we're in the rule. So we've held together. The 55 of us have held together better than anyone else in this whole setup, but it's just that time. Like you've got to figure out where you're at, and I think more than in the past, you have some stability to this. Like you have a setup. This is okay. we know this guy's going to be here, or we're going to have a big buyout. And we like the direction things are heading. We can see differences with our own eyes. Is there still a ton of work we have to do? Yes. But do we see that work happening, and do we see them better than as occurred before? And that's also true. So optimism is high, but we have to make sure that now what's the next phase? Okay. Another offseason with Campbell, and we get stronger, we get faster, but the young guys now that have entered the program that aren't contributing right now, those are the ones that have to now step up. And through injury and through all the things that have happened, that's a piece to this equation that's the fellows are going to have to do. You know what I mean? Is it great? Is it the best thing you want to have happen? No. But if you could start to rely on some of your younger guys now, I think your timetable for expediting your turnaround increases greatly. I mean, it increases a lot. We need to start to see some younger linemen start to pressure some of the older linemen for reps. Now, one of the bigger turnarounds from a game where I thought a couple games where I thought was pretty bad to a couple games I thought played well and maybe was a highlight was Ethan Piper. I was a guy that said, "Hey, maybe it's time to get a rotation going through there and get some guys in that you could at least take a look at and see what they got, see if it works out." That was one I said, "Damn, man, he's struggling. Let's get him a break. Let's get him a different look." But he has turned around greatly. I don't know if that's a confidence because of talent level he's going against. I don't know if he got too amped up when he was playing against, the higher profile teams. And that's the thing. Like some guys get very, very worked up. They get very revved up. They can't kind of control things. They can't control emotion. It just gets to be, and then you start to break down. You start to have those type of things that just falter. And Nebraska doesn't have that luxury. You can't have things falter. You have to be ready to roll at all instances. So to see him calm down, really play well against Northern Iowa, really play well against Louisiana Tech. Now a bigger test is there. Okay. So now you have to find, hey, I got to get my emotions under control. I got to make sure I can get my job done. And then you go from there. And so excited to see him have this opportunity now. Lutovsky, Noelle, Scott's very steady there in the middle. Benhart and Corcoran both have flashes where it's really good, and there's flashes of breakdowns. When you're playing the elite level teams that you're going to at Michigan the next week, if you have a breakdown against an elite level defender, now you could possibly cause harm to your own guy. Like you could cause. So in a way, you can't have that breakdown. Like you can't have that happen. You have to make sure that you have assignment and you trust technique, and away you go. Walter's with us this morning, as chipper as always, expressing his opinion on Mr. Satterfeld. Of course, he's a fire Satterfeld immediately. I don't think firing or termination is probably where you need to head quite yet, but I think a legit discussion on, hey, we've got to, you go great, and maybe I'm too hard on him. I've never called plays. I've never wanted to call plays. It's not my strength. It's not what I want to do. But you have to have some examination. You have to have like some self scout, right? I thought that was a powerful thing that kind of stuck with everybody last year, is that you have to get in and self scout that. And I think that's a fair conversation. And I don't know Matt Rule well enough to think that he would or wouldn't do it. But as it goes down, to just say, hey, what took you away from what we were doing here? Right? Because they got in a nice rhythm where they had a kick out block by the fullback. They had the guard pull and wrap around for any junk or any linebacker that was coming through there. And that play was working well. That and the straight up option were both nice plays. And they gave opportunity for your athletes to make plays. stuck with it, 3, 4 plays in a row, different formations to run it out of, different setups, but then went away from it and went, back to passing and those kind of things. So I think, and I'm sure those discussions do happen behind closed doors. I'm sure it's a discussion that has to happen. John says, I did see number 69 get in the way of a player yesterday. It happened to be Harburg, but at least he was in someone's way. Johnny's not a huge fan of of tackle situation at Nebraska. So take his passive aggressive shots as he does most of the morning. But I'm moving on board with it. It's he's got to be better. At this point in time in a career, you had the same coach for your first 3, you had the same coach for your last 2. It can't be something that's changed in a technique form. It can't be something that is different than it was before. So you've got to get ready and you've got to make sure that you're fixing that. If you do have dreams, aspirations, and hopes of going to the NFL, this is your week to be really good. Like this is your week to be awesome. Because if you're not, you're going to get exposed. Because Michigan has the caliber of defensive line that you're going to play against in the league. So if you go out and have a day, you look really good. Now you're giving yourself a chance. Like you're giving yourself an opportunity to do what you need to do to make sure that you are in a position to look good that day. Are you going to shake up the world? I don't think so. But can you at least raise an eyebrow? Like that would be my goal for the day. Be like, hey, how many people can I get that doubted us? That I just like, hey, that was a lot closer than I thought. That was what I needed to have happen. Or is it just going to be, okay, well, Nebraska still in the middle of the rebuild, which we're tired of that storyline. We're tired of that narrative. Nebraska's still in a rebuild. All right, here we go. It's this, that, the other. Same way. They're a ways away. Those are your goals. One way to get to your goal, and this is probably a statistic that scared me a little bit when I first saw it. I went back through and I was like, that can't be right. And then I went and watched it. Like, yeah, okay. In the game against Louisiana Tech, Nebraska on 3rd down was 3 for 11. If you get one more play, 1/4 of the time against the Sun Belt team, when you got to 3rd down, you could convert. Like that one, out of all the day, that one bugs me the most. Like that shouldn't be that number. That one has to be better. It just, I mean, that one right there, you've got to be able to stay on the field because of your lack of depth, which we talk about a lot. We talk about it over and over and over again. We don't have the luxury of being able to rotate a bunch of defensive linemen through. So we look at it. What can we do to keep them off of the field? What can we do to keep them in a better spot? How do we make that happen? What does that look like? How does it go? How do we figure it out? But you've got to get that, and a lot of that is your win on 1st down. If you can get a 4-yard play on 1st down, your play calling becomes drastically different. It becomes incredibly easy. I mean, in my opinion, and everybody I've ever worked with that is an offensive coordinator said it. If you get us into 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5, then I still feel I have everything available to me. I have everything that I want to do, everything I want to accomplish. I can still call the plays I need to call. Okay, great. That's awesome. But now how do you do that? How do you make sure that you put yourself in that spot? That just has to happen. Like, you can't continually play behind the sticks. You can't. It just can't. You've got to make sure that you have, your top of the game, your offense needs to stay out there and give those guys a break, because this will be a physical game. This will be one that you don't want to let them get settled in. You want them to feel uncomfortable with everything they're trying to do. And that's just to keep it in a very, very simple form. You don't want Michigan to be able to just waltz up and down the field. Trying to find there we go. In the special teams phase of the game, you saw the good and the bad. The fake field goal was pretty slick. Bleak Road. It's quite a day. Your rushing leaders for Nebraska: Heinrich Harburg, 19 for 183. Anthony Grant, 22 for 139. Timmy Bleak Road, 1 for 10. And then it falls off after that. But it was a good call. It was a good play. A little more movement out of the block, I believe, by the tight end. Piper then wraps around the corner. Unfortunately for the young man, he got tripped up. It is a touchdown design. The play is going to score a touchdown if he doesn't get kind of caught in the muck in there. But it was smart. You snuck in a different holder. Some coaches that are super neurotic are going to be all over that and say, hey, you got a different guy in there. What the hell's going on? Why is there a new dude in there holding for this? Louisiana Tech didn't catch it. Nebraska able to take advantage. On the bad side, you got lucky because after Nebraska's first score, had a breakdown in special teams, and then that got returned for a touchdown. Fortunately for Nebraska, called back via a hold. So you got to clean that up, because special teams in this and upcoming game have to be immaculate. Not just good, not just, okay. Have to be immaculate. You downed, I think, a punt, one, maybe two punts down deep in Louisiana Tech territory. Well done. Really good, well accomplished. Nice job. But in this game, you got to make sure you secure the football. Anytime you're fielding it, you have to make sure that you are on point on all protections. So any field goal you're attempting, because points will be valuable to Nebraska as they come into this game. But you cannot be a reason. You can't even, you hope that you're not even in the storyline. To be honest, like you hope you're not even, they don't even mention you, is what you're really going for. If Nebraska gets through that game and they don't talk about, hey, break down this punt blocked, blah, 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 any of that kind of stuff, then you're good. You've done your job. So those guys, I thought, in the grand scheme of it, and you hate to play that side of it, where, okay, this was what happened. It could have been way worse. Because I think your special teams day looks drastically different if you give up that return for touchdown. Like, it just can't happen. All right, so off to the comments that we go. Got a lot of chatter going on this morning. John says, do you know who won the Benning versus Haas little guy game last week? I do. The Damon Benning recruiting train was able to beat the mini Hoskinsons in the battle of 8th grade football. I think it's starting to eat at the boys a little bit. Haas, I think he's on a 3-game slide to Damon, so that will be eating at him for a while. Um, but yeah, I think we're the unofficial host of the post Hoskinson games. So we see the crew, and I heard the breakdown, and we're we're he's plotting and scheming. He's trying to come up with something. I know it's eating at him. Um, gosh, dog. Mike brings up a point, and I hope that Mike isn't 100% true. I did have this feeling a little bit. Um, the reason I say I hope you're true, or you are correct, Mike, is that if you were better, right? If you're a better team, get it 100%. Totally understand. You're looking ahead. You're trying to prep that stuff. A lot of times, these things that go like the look ahead stuff, when you're in your fall camp, is usually when people will say, okay, let's work some Michigan stuff here. Like, let's try some of this stuff out, see if it works, see what we can get accomplished, see if it is something that we can really do. And that's usually how it happens. Will there be things, maybe they slid in there, or it's a similar formation, and instead of running a Louisiana Tech route combination, they ran a Michigan route combination? That would be something that I would say happened. Um, in that, if you are looking ahead, you never ever really want to like let your players know that. If you let your players know that, it kind of shifts the mind. It shifts it into, okay, well, we're, onward we go. We're on to the next team. We'll be fine. Everything's good. We got this one in the bag. Not a big deal. But yes, that could be something that happened. Um, I think with the general overview of how this staff views this season, I don't think they view it as a write-off or a loss. I just think they view it as something as the score, let it be whatever it is. As long as we as a team improve, then our path is determined. If our improvements lead to more points, lead to win, lead to whatever, but they have a bigger picture view than just like immediate kind of flash in the pan win. Um, so that's kind of how I view that. That's I think, gosh, and it's kind of crazy because a lot of the fellows that I talk to are in the same mindset. They're like, hey, this dude's looking like not to the next game, like he's looking to the next like 3-5 years. I'm like, yeah, I get it. But I mean, I can't imagine how hard that has to be, like to try to get through all of that, sorting that out, finding a push, talent acquisition, in the off season, if that's via the transfer portal, if that's whatever it is, so be it. But their progression, yeah, and maybe Rule and those guys want this measuring stick. Maybe this is the game that they're looking for. Say, hey, this is what we are. They're in the top 5 in the country. We are not. This is a great test for us because I don't, really think, as Walter mentioned, this is the Big Ten West is an abomination. It's not very good. I think Iowa only had that point counter for Ferentz's kid. That one didn't move this week. It's the first time since I forgot what the stat was, but I think Penn State ran 90 some offensive plays and Iowa ran 33 offensive plays. So a 60 play offensive difference in a football game. In a football game. It happened. I mean, you hate to see it. You hate to see it happen to our good friends in Iowa. But man, a 60 play difference. Just think about that. 60 freaking plays. I shouldn't laugh. There's a chance that could happen this weekend. Jamie agrees it's going to be a rough Saturday, I'm afraid. Could be. Are you going to get it to a 60-point differential? I don't think that's going to happen. But only time will tell. 100% only time will tell. John says the left side of Nebraska's offensive line is going to get destroyed by Michigan next Saturday. Good. It could. Or the left guard has made progress. Left tackle. If they're really coaching hard and they're really looking guys in the eye and they're saying, hey, right now, you're the weak link on this. Everyone else has stepped their game up. You're not. That could be a discussion that's had, and then you answer the bell or you don't. That's what we're going to have to find. That's what we're going to have to see how it goes. It will be interesting to see how that goes. Fred asked an option question, which I'm sure every Nebraska fan in the country went 6 to midnight once they saw the true option being run. Fred asked, does Harburg need to pitch it a couple times just to keep the defense off balance? Nope. He just to be short and not brutally honest, but just be square. The only time he needs to pitch that is when the read dictates the pitch. And if they want to fly to him and leave the running back available, that's the time. But until they accomplish that, I don't think there's any need. That thing, it formed beautifully, and everybody's hard on Satterfield. I get it. It's a great concept and design. It really is. But it's not a dictated, hey, we have to pitch right now. Mandatorily, you have to get the ball out of your hands. He cleared the corner. Their defender second in from the sideline, so not the guy in coverage, not the corner, but an outside back or a safety rolled down in the box. That safety went to the pitch man. And then a wide receiver or a tight end got to the other safety, and you're clear sailing. It's just run, Forrest, run after that. So he was able to get that accomplished. Brian says, with as ugly as the Big Ten West has been, if you're a betting man, what odds would you set us for taking the West crown? Same for a bowl game. Man. Okay. If you get into the back half of this schedule, Illinois has woken up a little bit from their early season sluggishness and looks much better. Now they had I think it was a 7-point win over basically the same type of school we were playing. So again, not a world beater. Northwestern went back and forth with Minnesota, but I think to a human being in the chat watching live, which I appreciate you guys for that. Thank you so much. If you share all the information so people know that it's on, I've got a bunch of people asking, try to tell as many as possible where we're at now. Went back and forth with Northwestern, or with Minnesota and Northwestern went back and forth. I think every single one of us right now knows that if we play Minnesota again, you probably emerge victorious from that, but you don't get that opportunity. You don't get to go back and have a do-over, and we get to replay that, and then you win. Yeah, that's not something's going to happen. Purdue is after that. Not exactly, a juggernaut. They've looked really good at times, and they've looked very average at times. So Michigan State, not good. Like Michigan State has a lot of shit going on. So definitely something Nebraska can take advantage of and handle that game. Maryland is after that. They whooped up on Michigan State pretty good this week. They obviously went and game planned and found some holes that they knew they could take advantage of, and they did. After that, Wisconsin at Camp Randall. I don't like that game. So, and then Iowa at the end. It's a team you beat last year when you weren't very good. And you were able to do that, though you took advantage of some stuff in the passing game that was there. So that was a good thing. But you don't throw it as well as you did last year. Trey Palmer ain't coming back for that game. Casey Thompson isn't coming to sling it all over the field knowing he could throw for 400 yards, which your offensive coordinator at the time he just didn't want to throw it anymore. So those are odds on it to win it. The West, I would say 6-1. I like the path to a bowl game. Like I would put Nebraska being in a bowl game this year at even money. I would say that's just a straight bet. 100 gets you 100. Because in all that I just list through there, you can find 4 more wins. And not really try work. You could, if things round into form, you could go on a 3 or 4 game win streak. But again, progress has to be made. That incremental left foot after the right foot step, as you just slowly walk yourself up the chain. If you get those things done, you can easily get to a bowl game, in my opinion. Now, as much as there's an opportunity to win 4 in a row, right there through the middle, after you're done with this game, there's an equal opportunity that you could lose 3 in a row to limp out of the season. So, if you kind of take it for what it is. Yeah, I'd say to get to win the West, 6-1. To get to a bowl game, even money. I think if they don't get to a bowl game with the way their schedule lays out, I think it would be a letdown. I think that is there to take. Jamie says this was a tough game to watch. And on top of that, no Big Macs. I haven't been to a game in 15 years, so somebody's going to have to hit me up with what the Big Mac deal is. I don't know if they got to score a certain amount of points or if they just have to do something defensively or what the giveaway is, but you have no Big Macs. Fred with another good one says is starting QB for next year on the roster now. Fred, let's discuss that. Fred, you saved that one for the last game. Because I think to try to guess right now isn't very fair. I don't know if you're really committed, like power run game. Quarterback is the 11th man and going to be the guy that totes the mail. Yeah, then I think you do. If you want to be more balanced, play action pass. 2 things factor into this. I don't know if you can give a real assessment because of the receiving core, which I think is a little lacking. As we can see, like our guys are never fully open unless we take advantage of the middle of the field, which always seems to be there at least once. Improvement in the way the offensive line operates is going to be another huge piece to that. What does the offensive line look like? I think if the offensive line looks better, I don't think you have as many questions at quarterback as you do right now. If that offensive line picks up their play and makes everybody's job a little easier. Now I think you could have your quarterback that's going to start next year on your roster. But this is a live audition for the kid. And it's a chance that not a lot of guys always get. And so it's there to take advantage of. Do I think there's a quarterback controversy at Nebraska? No. Do I think that they're, going to see? I think the next time you'll see Sims again, this show completely based just on my opinion. I think the next time you see Sims in a role as a starter, if something has happened to Hurrdat, if he's hurt, because for the second game in a row, outside of one botched blocking assignment, you went from multiple turnovers in your first two games to one turnover in your next two. Talent level different. You're playing against different people. Totally get it. But protecting the ball is protecting the ball. We did have the fumble by Tommy Hill on the kickoff return that he got back on. But that one I can't fault Harburg or the offense for that. Not all turnovers are created equally. It's a good question there. Sean asks, great question. Can OC commit to the power run game? We looked great when we lined up and ran two back. Best drive of the game was the opening second half drive. Not going to argue with that. I'm very in favor of that identity. I'm very in favor of just, this is what we are. This is how we're going to do it. This is the way it goes. And you go from there. The kids even, like, you could see them feeding off of it. Like they were amped up. They were ready to go. They liked it. And there's nothing, if you want to get into play calling, you can run it right one time, you can run it left one time. If you want to view that as two different plays, great. Go ahead and do it. But when you find something that works, the easiest way to walk it down the line is run a subtle complement to it. That subtle complement can be the same blocking motion, the same action from one of the backs, but you give it to a different back because they're looking for something else. Kent the Barber, who's on the chat earlier, he said, it's time for a fullback trap. You're probably not far off. It's a great compliment. If he starts in that side where he's headed down to the right side of the field and he takes off, and then you hand the ball underneath, fantastic. But you got to make that happen. Your compliments all have to start to factor in now. The compliment doesn't have to be a pass. But it seems a lot of Satterfeld chatter this morning. But it's just that thing that, there's old Chad Detloff's in there. Yeah, just one of those that you have to figure it out. I talked about it earlier, like in a couple interviews that I do in the week now, because my radio time has gone down because my work time at Paisans has gone up. If you have anybody looking for a job, part-time, have them hit me up. I'll be happy to get them some hours. We pay well, and we work hard. We get things done. But I said on one of them, somebody asked me what I thought of the Northern Illinois game. I said, that's the best game I've seen him call that fit the strength of the players that he has since whoever, and I've now spacing my brain because it's Sunday morning, but when he and Rattler upset somebody down in South Carolina. I get it. You want to showcase like what your offense can do. But if your offense doesn't have the ball, if your offense is 3 for 11 on third down conversion, you're not going to get a lot of chance to showcase that anyway. So let's just focus on getting the plays called that fit what your linemen are good at, number one, what your quarterback has a great grasp of, number two, and what everybody can execute with very little thought. If that is just hitting seam routes, then hit the seam if you want to throw it. If it's running straight up option or lead option, run it. If it's running fullback kick out, guard wrap around, some will call that power G, some will call it power, whatever you want to call it. Don't care. But if that works for you, stick to it. And oh, but the defense is going to adjust to there. Okay. Let them adjust. There'll be little subtle changes in your blocking scheme. And guess what? It might not matter because the people that are executing it on the field believe in it. They know, hey, that worked. Let's do that again. Or you make it so if it doesn't work, that's the anomaly. The anomaly isn't that you called it and it got yards and it didn't work and it worked. Great. I called it and then we got stopped. Once the stop becomes the anomaly. The thought is, hey, once they get in there, we know this is getting yards. We're going to double team with the center and the non-pulling guard. We're going to wash out any inside defensive lineman. My tackle, whomever that may be, can just use speed if they have it, use a head fake if they have it. That's Benhart's side, so probably a little quicker than Corcoran. He gets head fake inside. He's up to a linebacker already. So now as the other guard, Piper in this instance, pulls around the corner. He's just pulling and looking for anything. The first thing in the wrong jersey, he's going to hit it. And then you get your fullback to get a good kick out. So calling plays that suit the strength of your team over calling what you think your huge offensive coordinator brain needs to call is the utmost of importance. Going back and rewatching Minnesota, Colorado, I'm not so sure with this game plan now that they are using that it doesn't fit Sims just as well as it fits Harburg. And maybe it gets him that spark, right? Because there's a part of me that thought, man, I'm watching this guy playing these first two games, and I don't know how jazzed up he is to do this. Like, I know he wants to play football, and I know he wants to go at it, but kids aren't dumb. When they get in there, like, man, we are running this stuff, and this does not. Whew, that throw in there, pretty tight window. I'm more just like hey, we got a great concept. We found a hole in a zone. I'd rather just grease that hole in there. But, he wants me to get this over an outside linebacker before the corner comes up. I kind of have to drop. I don't like that throw. Personally, that throw doesn't fit me. Kids know that stuff. But it's that communication. Again, much smaller scale. But at our practice, I just create scenarios when we run plays. And when we're going over our group work stuff or we're learning technique, or I'll just say this, hey, it's 3rd and 6. What do you want to run right here? And they'll give me an answer. So now I, as a assistant coach, I'll go down there to head coach MT. And now in the game, I'll say, hey, if you get into this scenario throughout the week, when I put them into this, they want to run this play. They want to run X play. We're not going to say on air. We get into the game situation and it starts to happen. And that's 3rd and 6 breaks out. And I know I've relayed the information of the play that my guys feel comfortable with. And then he runs it. And then he gets a first down. And you can see from the sideline, the mouthpiece smiles. Mouthpiece smile, your mouthpiece in your mouth, you smile, you look weird. But so that communication, right? That back and forth, I think is invaluable. Because play callers at times, and it's hard. I have immense respect for anybody that does it. because my little pea brain can't handle that. Way too much going on, way too much stuff. My crew and Malcolm, when I did call him the one season, they'll tell you I didn't call nothing. I had a really smart quarterback. I just let him call the plays. I'm like, you got her, buddy. Or if he's throwing it too much, I just make the little walking motion with my fingers like this. Hey, let's run it a couple times here. What do you say? But that feedback in there, you have to get that. Now you can't. It can be too much when too many people are talking. But find the plays that your players are comfortable with. Have the meeting. Alignment. We get to 3rd and 2. What do you want to run? Well, coach, we feel if on 3rd and 2, and you're really going to listen to us, if we could eliminate a lot of the pulling because they seem to from the film we've watched, they seem to really plug up A gap, B gap, and then if we can get something into C gap, we get just like an ISO type looking play over there, that'd be great. Because to get the pull off, they're penetrating too much. We can't make that happen. To be self-aware enough to admit that is a huge deal. To get those things done, that's awesome. And if you want to like eliminate a lot of strain that people bring on you, do those things. Guy asks, Sat called 2 plays that went for too long TDs, but called back by holding calls. Is it Sat's fault or McGuire's? It's a great point. And I think I really needed to pay attention on what the net result after those holding calls were. I think they still scored on maybe one of those two drives. I don't think it's anybody's fault per se. I think it's a great teaching point for the season. Like, hey, we're going to do this. We're inside breastplate, holding. And once you get your arm on a shoulder, and defenders are slick now, like they're fairly intelligent. When they turn and the jersey tugs, then you're just in. It's a hold. Like you're going to get that call when the jersey pulls away from the body. But if you get that inside and you feel that pressure, as soon as they start to turn and you kind of out of your peripheral, you catch the ball carrier and then you let go, never going to get called. It's not going to happen. So I don't think anybody per se is at fault. They're good play calls. But even after it's called back, just test it again. Say, safety, are you ready to run down here and actually make this play? Or are you going to let us do this to you again? Do you feel comfortable enough in downfield blocking? Are you worried about our tight end getting to you so you can't make the play? Excuse me, by the way. That's kind of where I view that. Like the penalties, unfortunate, did happen, but you've got to make sure that you go to that well. Is it something you run every play? No. But you got to make sure that you just run it until you stop it. There's quite a few Grand Island folks here in the chat. For those folks in the chat, Bob is obviously pissed. Hey, Bob, you don't have to watch, bud. It's fine. People got lives going on. Like they got friends, they got family, they got things going on. Just click the old don't watch, buddy. Clown. But they're I just got a message from a buddy. He's like, I know Bob, don't go too hard on him. Whatever. Yeah. Now he's got me out of my train of thought. You win this round, Bob. Fred brings up a good one here too. And this is something that as Nebraska season evolves, you've got to start to rotate in. We talk about it on the offensive line. We talk about it getting the young receivers in the game. We talk about all these other positions. Running back, now via necessity, you have to start to get whomever it is in the game. But like if it's, I know the Johnson kid was in quite a bit. He was the one that was giving Grant a break. Probably need to factor that in. Now I'm not necessarily that wild about having to do it this week, but if you got somebody where you can get the rock to next week, like Illinois, you're gonna get a bunch of carries. Like if I was kind of a rotation disappointment in this game, would have been that the younger guys, if you do choose to like, hey, we're gonna pull this red shirt and we're gonna make these guys, be a part of this because we have to, then let's get them carries in this game. Like let's see how this goes. This is a great way to ease them into the game. This is a great way to get them used to what we're doing and have a run at it. See what we got. And now maybe we got a good compliment after the long run. I know they gave Grant a spell for a couple plays. Probably just would have ridden that out a little more and seen what we can have. But Fred's spot on this. You have to get the guys in. Like you have to. Like I said, my goal for this was them to get to 6-6. They get to 6-6. It's a bowl game. It's 15 more practices. You invite all the coaches in the area. It's exposure. It's all these things that you can have happen. But might as well go down swinging with your young guys and see how well they can play and see how well they can go. Or we're just going to grind this out with these old guys and maybe they're getting enough done in the background that we can find out what's actually happening. Maybe in practice those guys look great and it is what it is and they can go from there. Or maybe it's something that we just have to figure this all out on the run. And I'd hate to get them in a position where you get Grant injured because now you don't have any choice. Now you have to play them, and I'd rather get them going now and get them that experience. But that was one missed opportunity. That was one missed opportunity that I think that right now, that's maybe they're sandbagging it. Maybe they're sandbagging toward the back end of the year. We put the guys in, you use them for their 4 in the bowl game, and you go from there. Jamie is very true here, though, also. Oh, sorry. We'll get to Johnny. Johnny V says, other than the O-line and QB, we are in good shape. Are we not? Well, I think you have a quarterback that has a chance to evolve into things. Like he's a kid that obviously shows great potential, like running the ball. Footwork needs some work when you're in the straight drop back passing game. I think the arm strength is there. Like I think he has all the throws in his bag that he can make every throw you need. But there's just something I don't know if it's a lack of trust. He airmails a lot of throws. And anytime you're really over the top, like you're airmailing a bunch of throws, to me, that would be a follow through thing and a trust thing. It's like, hey, I got to let this thing rip. Now, when he gets back to 3 and he knows that his read has met what his expectation of the read is, and maybe that's a thing. He's thinking the read is going to be something, then when it isn't, meaning once he gets the snap, he looks at the defender. The defender does exactly what he thought. Hey, this guy's going to bail. I'm going to be able to chuck this thing right in there. No problem. Boom. Looks great. The kid from Ohio State did it last night to go down and beat Notre Dame. When Notre Dame decided, and hey, mental problems plague everybody, evidently, folks. Notre Dame on that last play of that game, the last 2 plays of that game, played with 10 guys. They had 10 dudes on the field. Pretty important game. Because I spotted, I was watching it, I'm like, the first one that Ohio State threw the little out, and sorry to take a sidebar here, I looked at the pre-snap and I'm like, there's no defensive lineman to the offense's left side. And I thought maybe they had some kind of shift, had a tendency on day. They're like, oh, he's going to run it here. Da, 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 da. That one's incomplete. Go back and run the next one. And I was like, holy shit. They only have 10 of 10 dudes. And anyway, so problems affect everybody everywhere. Back to the QB. Harburg, though, at times looks immensely confident in that. And again, much as the discussion I was saying have with the lineman, have that with the QB. And I'm sure they do have it. But you almost have to be that psychologist that Tom Osborne was, is like, hey, Heinrich, why are you so good at this throw? But then this throw seems to struggle you. This one, you seem to think too much. You seem to grip the ball too tight. You airmail this throw a lot. What is it with this one? Well, coach, I see this, and he did this, and then that moved there, and I was able to grease that thing in there. And away I went. I felt great about it because the read was true, and we just accomplished it. So now you can get into your play design and say, okay, I now as a coach, through all of the 800 motions and all of the shifts and all that stuff, I have to manipulate the defense and change the coverage so this kid can feel confident with this. So he can throw this thing in there. So that's one of those where I'm just like, okay, you look good on some of them. What makes you look good there? How can I create that scenario for you? And now the coaches feels comfortable with. None of them are ever going to be 100% true all the time, but you can also go to battle with that defensive coordinator and say, hey, how are they teaching this? Let me watch their film. Do they always do this when they see this motion? That's something that he's got embedded in how he coaches. Now, I, as the coach, can take advantage of that. And now I can do those kind of things. So that's how I would look at that on that side. Ken asked, are you in a dungeon right now? No, Ken, this is the office. I'm not going to give you the panoramic view of the office here at Paison's Pizzeria because it is a debacle. There is shit everywhere, and I cannot show you this. But yes, this is the backup office for the one when I'm normally out in the dining room when Cam the man's here to set those things up. Brian says Iowa versus Nebraska could be 5-3 pitcher deal. That one's a long ways away. I can't even think about that one at this time. But what else we got here in the comments? I'm a one-man show today. Big Mac sack for Nebraska. Okay. Thanks, Jamie, for clearing that up. I didn't know that was an available thing. Ed says, better buckle up. It's going to be a long year. What, Ed? Be a little positive here, right? We get over this hump. We get over this hump. And you have winnable games to follow. You have, I'll tell you this. When you get past Michigan, truthfully, in my heart of hearts, I think every game from there on out is a coin toss. And some of them are a higher odd than a coin toss. I think you have a chance for all of it. Don't know what just happened there with the feed, but appreciate everybody holding on. Caleb says need to start Prohaska instead of Corcoran. Corcoran is a little slow on the run and pass. Move Corcoran maybe one of the guards. Thoughts? Caleb, 100% in with you on that. Teddy's health, getting him back to 100%. I don't know if this is the game. I don't know if this is the game that they're going to be putting Teddy back in. I would say you're going to see him in like that tight end spot like he was again this week with some 2 tight sets where you just chuck him in there and you let him, get to going and kind of get his feet back under him. Unfortunately for that, it's not a set that you put like a high enough volume in where he can really get like lathered up and get 6-8 plays in a row. But it's something where you're kind of riding it back in. You're just getting him back going. Jason says Nebraska will have to hit the portal hard for a few wide receivers and a left tackle. 6 wins seems impossible this year. It's a luxury and a curse right now in college football because you can go out and get some fast solutions to what you have on your current roster. Those fast solutions, though, will always come with some baggage. They'll come with some issues. They'll come with some things. They'll come with some things that aren't necessarily football related. There's a reason people leave schools. They'll say it's playing time. They'll say it's not something that you wanted to do. Blah 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 blah. They did this to me. They did that to me. Sometimes when you get those reasons, that's a kid that just doesn't understand the process yet. They're young. I get it. Sometimes when you get to a new fresh start, it's a new beginning, you understand, and the coaches are blatantly honest with policies. I think that misses a lot with some schools. They want to get the high profile guy there, but they don't tell the high profile guy the expectation. You can come here. This is going to happen, but this is what we have to have out of you. This is the way this has to go. This is what this is going to be about. If at the first inkling you don't think you can live up to this expectation because you will be held to the same standards as everybody, let us know. I think that's how a lot of the guys are like, oh, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. It's because during that recruiting process or during that deal, they're told a lot of things. You are told how fun it's going to be. Oh my God, you're going to walk in here and you're going to start day one, blah, 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 blah. So there is a potential for that if you're able to sift through it and get the ones that fit the culture you're building. And then that can happen at wide receiver, that can happen at tackle. I don't know the severity of Irvin or Johnson's injuries, if they're career threatening, if they're season out. But you probably look in your running back room too. Because you got some young guys in there. Depth is always good. You can find basically it's like shopping for Christmas. You can go down every aisle and you can find something. Your knowledge or self-assessment of being able to watch film on somebody and saying, okay, that guy is better than we have, or is as good as what we have. Through our evaluation, through our eyes, we see it in this manner. Then it starts. Then the relationship goes. Then it all kind of starts to shake out. That's what you have to get figured out. But that roster, like I told you, don't fall in love with necessarily any player on the team because they're going to flip that roster again. They're going to bring in more guys. Like you can see that recruiting class and then probably another 20 because they think they can find better. And that's what it is. And if they find that and they do it right, and then the wide receiver room particularly would be the focus to me, followed very closely by offensive line. Because you've got to start to get players that can take the top off of the defense. Like you've got to have guys that can run straight down the field, make a safety have to stay in place and not creep down into the box, which then affects your run game. But you can make that happen. You really can. And Jason, I don't like the negative. 6 wins seems impossible this year. Get to the back end of that schedule. That's all you got to do. You finish the first half of your season 3-3. You can find 3 wins on the back end of that schedule. On my mom's life. Love Nance to death. But on the back end of that, you can find 3 wins. And you don't have to look very hard. JK says, if Doc Brown and Marty McFly didn't try going back in time, do you think Nebraska was ever planned to rotate offensive line personnel on that left side? Michigan, not the game to try stuff. Agree with that. I agree with guys being under fire. It's been a perplexing thing for multiple years now through 2 different offensive line coaches. They seem to feel very confident rotating at the right guard, which is great. It's awesome. Um, Probably need to explore that on the left as well. I would agree with you. Just just to get a jolt, get something to shake up, get something to maybe it triggers, maybe it works, and you go there. Like maybe you just something clicks, and then you go back to it, and whatever part or piece you took out when they get back in, still clicking. Okay, now we got something. Now we got rhythm. Now we got something we can feel. This is pretty awesome. And away we go. But I do think you have to give it a try next week. Like you said, this isn't the one to go in and try to get real experimental. This isn't the one to go and, hey, let's try this today. See if this works. John says, why is Teddy playing yet? I know he essentially hasn't played since high school due to injuries, but I have to believe he is a better option at this point. um, there's got to be something that's just a hang up that they're seeing in practice when they do their live stuff that they don't fully trust. Like they don't think that he's ready for the full go. It's the only thing in my mind that sticks or resonates. There's something that they see during the week that says, hey, he's close, but he's not 100%. And as to your next comment, John, where you said, wow, novel concept, talking to players about the comfortable running, that'd be amazing. You would be shocked at how few coaches do that. Like how few coaches just take the time. Just take the time to say, hey, what do you feel comfortable with? What do you like? And you just find that gem. Hey, backs against the wall. Got to convert a 3rd and 2 to keep the ball, run a game out. Boom. They love this play. Run it. Mine's a crazy thing. It'll get you. It'll get you through. It really will. There has been some comment on this in the chat. I appreciate you guys all for doing that. I hope you're having a good time in there. Brian says, how did you like Colorado getting smoked? As I predicted. Just feels right. Yep. Ran into a team that is a buzzsaw. Oregon is a good football team. The glaring questions for Colorado were, how does your offensive line hold up? And I know not one Nebraskan that shed a tear for Dion as the bludgeoning was going on. I saw many comments on the Colorado players that were on the O, and the one guy scraped his foot on there, kind of like he was kicking up the dirt. Everybody lost their mind with it. There were people lying in wait. Now, when you go out and you make grandiose predictions and you run your mouth and all those things, you're gonna get got. Everybody has had that happen to them. You've run your mouth and you've got punched in the face. That's just the way it goes. But it's not going to stop him. He's going to come out and he's going to have a vision of what it was and what happened and how they're going to fix it. And they'll be active again in the portal and they will be on a manhunt for offensive linemen. So in essence, we will be competing in the portal, much as everybody is, but just to spice it up a little bit, we'll be competing for offensive linemen with Dion and his crew in the offseason because you're probably going to find some similar guys. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how that happens. Ken says La Tech gave up 10 sacks prior to NU. Black shirt's not getting one sack yesterday was somewhat mind-blowing to me. It was. The commentary on the game I thought was pretty horrible. Matt Millen and the other guy I don't know. It was weird. The thing that the thing that the one of the points in the pregame that he brought up that I thought was very spot on was that he said a lot of the sacks that Nebraska got were when they ran pressure. They weren't able to, get home with their three. So they ended up bringing 4 or 5, just blitzing. And I don't think Nebraska blitzed as much yesterday as we had seen it in the past. Saw him get up there in some situation, and it never got home. Tip of the cap, though, to Louisiana Tech's offensive line coaches, because when Nebraska did blitz, they did well. Like they picked it up. They passed guys on, meaning if I'm the right side of the line of the offensive line, and I've got a tackle on me, and I'm uncovered at the guard, and I've got a guy on the center, and then they bring up 2 blitzers, not just one, but 2 blitzers. So now those 2 blitzers then in turn are going to run a stunt or a twist, meaning that once that linebacker gets over me as the uncovered guard and he slants to the right, and then the nose guard loops around to the left. So the guy that wasn't there, then now is in front of me, and then now he's moving to my left. I have to pass him off to the center, and I have to wait for the guy to come around, because if something is leaving, something else is coming. So then I've got to communicate to the back that he's got to get out and help the tackle with the other linebacker that's up blitzing. So they did a really good job of doing those things. Like they did a nice job of getting that handled. So sometimes you tip your cap. It is a little bit off-putting, but I also think Nebraska kept it a little vanilla. I would say they've got some blitzes that they want to show in this game against Michigan to just keep them off balance. I'm not guessing anything new or exotic was done. It's things you don't want to put on film, so they have a full week of practice time for it. It's like, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to get that out there, and we're going to go from there. So I would have liked to seen him get a little bit more pressure. You would see that make quite a few changes in it. Guy back at it today, moving the mouse on the wrong computer. A good point by Guy here. Portal players haven't performed as well as players who they have developed from within, i.e. Sherman, Bullocks, and Wright. It was I'm not a huge newspaper guy, but on Twitter, the depth chart came out. So I'm looking at the depth chart and I'm like, okay, where are all these transfer guys factoring in, and where are they at? It speaks volumes to the job Coach White and his defensive staff have done, because they took the parts that were there and they reshaped them and they molded them. Heinrich flying around was awesome. You got to see him kind of getting after it. Very cool. But the players that you had there on defense, 100% look night and day different. They attack. They're usually good. They got a little sloppy in tackling this week. They really did. But bound to happen at some point in time. It's bound to go down. You can't be flawless every week. That's your goal. But Troy Dumas just inducted into the Hall of Fame. He was in that Wyoming game. There were a couple games back in the glory days, back in the good old days, where the defense just had an off day. Was it a catastrophic off day? No. But it just, it was a little off. Something was different. And so if that was, hey, we got to pull our cards back close to the vest, we're going to play this pretty vanilla, just because we got a big game coming up, that factors into it too. But Tony White and his crew, as I've said a couple times on this show, and by the way, I'll probably have to wrap up here at 9:45, just a heads up. I got to go take care of a couple things before I got to get this joint open for business. But they'll have those off days. And as we progress through this, Tony White, we need to really back up the Brinks truck. Like we need to get him paid. That guy has exceeded any expectation I could have thought in year one. He took the parts that were there. He got transfer pieces in, and the parts that were there beat out some of the transfer pieces. I think we all had this vision, like, okay, we're gonna get these. We got Florida transfers. We got transfer from here, transfer from there. They're all gonna come in. They're better than what we got. So we're gonna see them start. It's gonna look different. We'll get used to them. We'll understand about it. Blah 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 blah. Nope, didn't happen. They walked into it and said, "Hey, this is what these kids are. Like they can get this done." And then the way that they have taught that defense and the way that they have affected the psyche of that defense, really cool. There's a penalty. I can't remember. And I'm not saying that there aren't some guys that transfer in that aren't started, like Omar Brown, the UNI guy. He's good. He's real good. Like, I really, really enjoy watching him play. But somebody got a defensive, it might have been a pass interference, something. And the kid from Southeast, the safety, number 2, Gifford, came over. And this is like, forget about it. Let's go. High five, back to the huddle. That's a hard thing to do. And you don't always see that. You see the kid kind of go back and forth with the ref. You see him talk about, hey, it's this, that, the other. So those little things, yeah. Like they don't seem like much. They seem like it should be second nature or commonplace to you, but it isn't always true in that manner. It isn't always that way. So I thought that what they've done with that side of the ball is pretty cool. Because I thought when they came in, I was like, okay, 3-3-5, yeah. We haven't played like the big, powerful, bruising offenses. So we'll know more how the 3-3-5 or 3-3-3 holds up. Sorry, 3-3-5. I hate to play it too short. We'll see how it holds up. But I feel more confident in it now than I have in the past. People that have come in to eat at Paisans. By the way, if you need anybody that needs a job, have them send them my way. But at Paisans, I told them, I'm like, they're like, what games make you nervous? And I told them, I said, well, if we can get a split out of the first two, I said that third one scares me because historically Northern Illinois has always been able to come in and run the ball. They're based in it. The Cal Illinois, tough kids. They do all this. Should be able to accomplish that. So that was one that I had. So when we came out and played really well in that game, I was like, okay, sweet. We handled, a Minnesota team that's not what it was, but we made them play left-handed and threw the ball, took away the run. Able to do it against Northern Illinois. Do I think that's a step up? No, but it was one that it gave me trepidation. Louisiana Tech more throw it around. And now, you're into the bulk of it. Your big test for what this defense really is will come on Saturday. And can you get creative enough, stay gap sound? Michigan, I think, is the 2-time Joe Moore Award winner. I think consecutive. Joe Moore, for those of you that don't know, goes to the best offensive line in the country. This will be your test because I don't think anything else the rest of the way out for you looks like that. I don't think anything else that's there is what these guys are. This is everybody is looking up at two teams. And I know Penn State played a hell of a game against Iowa. Controlled every phase of that thing, controlled it from start to finish. Well, Iowa fan, whether you want to hear it or not, that's what happened. That's the way it went down. And so survive this test. Be optimistic, see how it goes, feel it out, however you want to say it. But it's a deal like you're gonna know what you are on Saturday. And for me, I think that's really all you can like look at it as. Johnny asked or Dave. Oh, sorry. Brad asked, "Do you have any stats on Dakotas?" I know Dakotas had 2 catches. Yeah, I think he just had 2 catches. There we go. Dakota's Crawford, 2 catches, 17 yards. Long was 10 yards. I got questions flying in now. Are linemen getting beat on pass pro because of the ability or is it technique? Cleat, my man, cousin Cleat. I think that is a combination of both things. I think I think technically the base at time needs to stay wider. And I think man, yeah, I mean we're still a little heavy footed. And I thought that was something that we could get kind of handled in the off season. It would definitely be a point of emphasis for me next year. I got Goose, Troy Rugi says, don't think everyone will start packing the box to keep us from running the ball? We can get a quarterback to pass better. Okay, so this is the tough part of it. Yes, they're going to teams that know they can play man coverage on your receivers are going to fill the box. Okay. Where we may create an advantage for ourselves if they choose to do that is you can create a passing mismatch with Fedoni. Okay. If you want to change and you want to pack the box, you're giving something up. So now if you man everybody else up, all the other receivers up, Washington, I thought was a little. I would have liked to seen him get the ball, but I think La Tech said, "Hey, this is where they can go. There's not a lot else they can do. Let's just focus on that." You had four. You had 4 guys catch the football. Billy Kemp had 5. Fedoni had 1. Bullock had 1, and Grant had 1 in the game. Okay. If you want to fill the box, you're going to have to give up something else. So now you're choosing to play man. When you play man, sometimes you actually can weaken yourself because if the receiver isn't caliber 4 deserving of man coverage, it's sometimes easier just to pass them off in zone because a quarterback usually can read a man coverage a little bit better, especially if they know they can get a mismatch. I think Billy Kemp becomes a mismatch if a team decides to go into man. Now you can get creative with formation. You can get those one-on-one blocks. You can get one-on-one blocks with Billy Kemp, say on a linebacker, on a safety. You're going to win that. Like it's how you can manipulate the formation to get either Fedoni or Billy Kemp in one-on-one matchups. If they want to pack the box and you do want to throw it, I think you really have to brush up on your screen game. Like retreat, throw the screen. But hopefully that's something offensively they've been sandbagging, like they've been holding back and are able to use in a game like Michigan just to keep Michigan off balance. If you get to a point where you're throwing and you let Michigan pin its ears back and just get after you, long night. Really, really, really long night. But if you get in that 3rd and long situation, how many times has it happened to us in the past? We get somebody in 3rd and long, we send a blitz. Blitz looks great. We're getting home. Oh my God, we're not getting home. They let us go on purpose. They're going to throw it over the top. And they throw that little screen. The screen goes for 16 yards and gets a 1st down conversion. We have to start to do that to other people. Like we have to start to get that done. That's something that I am a big proponent of when you're developing. Now, to Cleet's point earlier, now you're getting into the athleticism of a lineman. Piper, Scott. Really, I'm fine with Piper being out there in space. Trucked a guy pretty good against Northern Illinois in open space on a Harburg run. Made it on to Jeff Saturday's little segment on ESPN. It was a good block. It was well done. So, that can happen. But you got to get some just to keep him off guard. I don't think we possess the speed to do anything kind of reverse-wise. I think right now, as it goes, you'll see compliments run off of plays that Nebraska has been successful with thus far. The fullback kick-out, guard wrap-around play will probably have a complement to it this week because Michigan will make sure, hey, out of all the plays they run well, this one they seem to go to when they want to. So what can we do to take this away? If we go straight speed option, like we did a couple times where Harburg got his long run, okay, safety, you're going to come flying down the box. You are going to come down a Helen, and you are going to hit the first thing in the wrong jersey. Now you run a compliment off of that. Oregon ran a pretty slick, they called it, the modern triple option. There was a dive fake. There was a motion across the formation. They didn't snap it into the motion guy, but they did a fake to the remaining back. The quarterback started out at the outside linebacker. The outside linebacker came up to him, and the quarterback just dumped it over the top to the motion guy that had motioned out in the flat. So instead of the pitch being backwards on the third part of the option, it was just a throw over the top. So those kind of things, that kind of creativity, we'll hopefully get to see on display for Nebraska this week. I don't think you need to get into the gimmicky stuff. I don't think you need, hook and ladder and all this kind of weird crap. I think you just need to have good complements to the plays that you currently have had success running the ball with. Those two that I named off probably being the biggest two. That's the way it goes. So my outlook for this Michigan game, and then I'll wrap it up on this because my battery is actually dying on this computer. And I'm pretty sure I left my charger at home. I failed you today. It wasn't my best day. How do you deal with someone more talented? Okay. Got to be a belief in your mind that we can do some things in this game. There's got to be a pride in it, just in and of yourself. Okay. I've got to take pride in my craft. I've got to take pride in my trade. I've got to take pride in my university, my coaches, my teammates, all that stuff. I've got to be willing to make these sacrifices. Okay. What are we good at? What can we watch and say, hey, I can get this dude. I know on these plays, I can beat that guy. Coach, here's what I have. Here's what I'm going to do. Let's run this. Like, this is something I know I can accomplish. If that's the same power play that you feel you can get a great double team, because that's what actually makes that play. When you get that defensive lineman that's on the side that the puller is going to. Okay, so we're just pulling right. It would be the defensive tackle now on the right side. Can I get him moved out of the way so that guard can go around that corner to get the linebacker? If the kids feel confident and say, yeah, we can do that. We've watched film. We think we're about the same as this guy. We could do that. Boom, boom, boom. Here we go. Okay. Defensively, it's going to have to be creativity and confusion. Okay. Can you get them confused where their blocking schemes falter? Where you make it so they have to play a little bit left-handed. You're not going to fully shut them down. Okay. But you can also get in there and you can limit loss. If you can get drives that get down into the red zone and you find it within yourself to bow your back and they have to kick a field goal, That is a win. All right. If you find something, and Rutgers must have seen something they liked because they threw, was that a seam? Or they run that one in? It was a long day yesterday. But anyway, they scored early in the game. They found something they liked. They executed that. They threw the first punch. Unfortunately for them, the next 5 scores all came from Michigan and ended up the way it ended up. They're going to be able to close things down quickly. So if you find something you like and you can take advantage of it, great. Do it. But that's going to be that's going to be the key thing in the game plan this week is offensively, what can we establish? Do they go into a man coverage setup? Okay, now we got to figure out ways to get Kemp and Fedoni the football. If they don't want to, if they want to play zone because they want to come up and they want to, be quick to read and get up and run support, what plays are we confident about? What battle up front can we win? Defensively, can we create just confusion? Can we mess up their blocking schemes with our blitzes? Can we give them a look where they think we're going to blitz, we actually bail out of it? Then we just play good defense. If Corum gets the ball in space, can we get great tackling angles? Can we tackle as a team? Can we tackle together? Can we get him on the ground? You add up point after point after point of all those. That's how that has to go in. Special teams has to factor. We have to be as close to perfect as possible. If that means we have to kick every ball in the end zone, then every ball has to get kicked in the end zone. When we are punting, if we are punting diagonally, we're punting to a corner, we have to accomplish that. Can we do it with a bad snap? Can we do it with a good snap? Can we do it with no pressure? Can we do it with a lot of pressure? Now that we have a fake on film, can we set them down and say, okay, Bleak Road, you're going to go out and just hold for this one? Kind of a big kick. We need you to get this, through the uprights, Alvano. Send in a different holder, but the kick still goes through the uprights. Like, just play that game so maybe they ease off on the rush a little bit. If you see they got the normal holder in, okay, rush that thing, blah, 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 blah. Or you go the opposite way. Hey, we brought him in and faked it last week. They don't think we'll fake with you. But guess what? We're going to fake with you. So just those little things, like little intricacies. I don't think you need to get real crazy on kickoff return. There doesn't need to be a throwback to another guy on the other side of the field. I don't think things like that have to happen. But just little things to keep them honest. And then you just keep swinging. And you just keep throwing jabs and hoping a couple of them get home. And hoping they factor in and you're able to stay in the game. Because the later it goes in the game, the more confident Michigan is going to feel. And that's contrary to what I usually say. Normally with other teams, I like when Nebraska stays close because you can create a doubt. And maybe these guys aren't as shitty as they once were. Maybe they're actually better. But with Michigan's like, yeah, we've been waiting for this fourth quarter. Because all that stuff we did to you early, now it all pays off. We're going to start to pound on you. We're going to start to beat on you. And this is where we're going to score 14, 17, 21 points. Because we don't think you're very deep. We don't think you have a lot of players. You may confuse us early. You may even go into halftime up. By the end of it, that's where we want to get it to. So that's how I'd attack that game this week. Tons of stuff going on. Thank you guys all for participating. Hopefully, John was getting after Cam. Cam had other things going on today, so I was working the board and the calls and all that kind of stuff. But appreciate you, Kevin. Kevin just got in and he's like, "Oh, you're leaving already?" It should be up on the Hurrdat Network. It'll of course be on the YouTube page. Appreciate you guys as always for listening around. If you need any t-shirts, head over to dear old OLE NebraskaU.com. It's you, the letter, not YOU. And you can pick up any t-shirts. Part of that will go to support all the former players that are featured in those shirts. Then another part we're going to do some fun stuff with and also try to keep that business solvent. But yeah, just something that I've kind of been screwing around with, having some fun with. We've got some more t-shirt designs coming out, hopefully this week. So on to Michigan we go. Love you guys. Thank you guys so much for participating. Sorry I had to cut her short today, but I got to get over to football meeting for our game this week against Pius. Appreciate you and have a great Sunday.